Nexus Station 7 floated in the darkness of space like a massive wheel of light and metal. It was home to over 50,000 beings from dozens of different species. The station served as a trading hub and diplomatic center where aliens from across the galaxy came to do business, make deals, and try to live together in peace. In the civilian quarter of the station, the Torrance family had made their home for the past 2 years. Marcus Torrance stood at the wide window of their apartment, watching ships come and go from the docking bays. He was a tall man with broad shoulders and careful eyes. He had served in the Human Defense Coalition for 15 years before retiring to take a civilian position as a security consultant. His wife, Yuki, worked as an engineer in the station's maintenance division. She was brilliant with machines and had quickly earned respect from her alien coworkers. Their daughter Emma was 8 years old. She had her mother's dark hair and her father's curious nature. She loved living on the station because there were so many different aliens to meet and learn about. She had friends from 6 different species and could say hello in 12 different languages. That morning started like any other. Emma ate her breakfast while her robotic pet, a small floating sphere she had named Zippy, buzzed around the kitchen. Marcus reminded her to stay in the civilian areas and not wander into restricted sections. Yuki kissed her daughter's forehead and headed off to work. Emma grabbed her tablet for school and left with Zippy following close behind. The station's main promenade was always busy in the mornings. Aliens of all shapes and sizes moved through the wide corridors. There were the tall bird-like avalons with colorful feathers, the short stocky kin who looked like walking rocks, the graceful Pelthrians who moved on 6 legs, and many others Emma had learned to recognize. The station was patrolled by the Vraxian Constabulary. The Vraxians were a proud species who valued order and rules above all else. They stood nearly 7 feet tall with gray skin and sharp features, wearing dark blue uniforms decorated with symbols of rank and authority. They had been given the job of keeping peace on the station by the Galactic Council. Most species respected the Vraxian officers, but many humans found them cold and dismissive. The Vraxians made no secret that they viewed humans as newcomers to the galactic community. Some officers even called humans primitives or backwater apes when they thought no humans could hear. Marcus had warned Emma to be polite to all officers but to keep her distance when possible. Emma walked through the promenade on her way to the education center where human and alien children learned together. Zippy suddenly spotted something interesting and zoomed ahead. "Zippy, wait!" Emma called out, laughing as she ran after her pet. She didn't see the Vraxian officer until it was too late. Emma bumped into him, bouncing off his legs and stumbling backward. The officer was Craven, a high-ranking constable known for strict enforcement of every rule. He was carrying an ornamental data tablet, a status symbol among Vraxian officers. When Emma hit him, the tablet fell and the screen cracked with a sharp sound. Emma looked up, wide-eyed. "I'm so sorry. I didn't see you. I was chasing my robot." Craven looked down at the broken tablet, his face twisting with anger. "Stupid human spawn," he snarled. "You dare damage my property?" "I really didn't mean to," Emma said, her voice shaking. "I can ask my mom to fix it. She's really good with—" His hand moved too fast to see. He struck Emma across the face with the back of his hand. The blow lifted her off her feet and sent her crashing to the floor. Pain exploded through her face, and blood poured from her nose. She could taste copper in her mouth. The promenade went silent. Dozens of beings had witnessed what had just happened. Some gasped, others stared. A few quickly looked away. Emma lay on the floor crying and bleeding, unable to understand what had happened. She had said sorry. It was an accident. Why did he hit her? Marcus had been walking about 50 meters behind his daughter. He saw everything. He saw Emma bump into the officer. He saw the tablet fall. And he saw Craven strike his little girl. Something cold and dangerous flooded through Marcus. His military training took over. He crossed the distance in seconds, moving faster than most beings thought humans could move. Craven was still standing over Emma when Marcus reached him. Marcus grabbed the Vraxian's arm and twisted it behind his back with practiced efficiency. He swept the officer's legs out from under him and slammed him face first onto the floor, then placed a knee on his back. "Don't move!" Marcus said, his voice deadly quiet. Someone call medical now. Other humans rushed forward. One woman knelt beside Emma, using her scarf to stop the bleeding. Another man helped Marcus keep Craven pinned down. Within minutes, station security arrived. The team was led by another Vraxian officer named Talvin. He assessed the situation quickly. Emma bleeding on the floor, Craven pinned, witnesses standing around. Release Officer Craven immediately, Talvin ordered. Marcus looked up in disbelief. This officer assaulted my daughter. She's 8 years old. He struck her without provocation. I said release him, Talvin repeated, his hand moving toward his weapon. More security was arriving, and Marcus could see his daughter needed medical attention. Slowly, he released Craven and stood with his hands raised. Craven straightened his uniform. I want this human arrested for assaulting an officer, he said. No, Marcus replied. He hit my daughter. Everyone here saw it. Talvin turned to the crowd. Did anyone witness this alleged assault? Most aliens looked away. Some left immediately. A few humans spoke up, confirming Craven struck Emma, but their words seemed to carry little weight. The human female collided with Officer Craven and damaged his personal property, Talvin said, as if reading from a script. Officer Craven responded with appropriate corrective action. The human male then violently assaulted an officer of the law. Arrest him. 2 security officers grabbed Marcus. He didn't resist, but his eyes burned with rage. This isn't over, he said to Craven. Medical personnel arrived and took Emma to the station hospital. Yuki received an emergency call at work and ran to be with her daughter. She found Emma lying in a hospital bed with a broken nose, severe bruising across her face, and a concussion. The little girl was sedated but kept crying in her sleep. When Yuki learned that Marcus had been arrested instead of Craven, she felt something break inside her. She was a peaceful person. She believed in following rules and working through proper channels. But this was wrong. Deeply wrong. She went to the station administrator's office. Administrator Velto was a Pelthrian, a species known for being cautious and diplomatic. He listened to Yuki's complaint with what seemed like sympathy. I understand your distress, Velto said carefully, but Officer Craven has diplomatic immunity as a member of the constabulary. He cannot be prosecuted under station law. He struck my daughter, Yuki said, her voice shaking. She's a child. She weighs 30 kilograms. He could have killed her. I am told the child damaged valuable property and that the officer's response, while perhaps excessive, was within his authority to maintain discipline. She's 8 years old. Velto shifted uncomfortably. I will file a formal complaint with the Vraxian constabulary. Officer Craven will receive a citation for excessive response. Your husband will be released with a warning. I believe that is the best resolution for all parties. A citation? Yuki could barely speak. My daughter has a broken nose and a concussion, and he gets a citation? I am sorry, Velto said, but he wouldn't meet her eyes. That is how the law stands. Yuki left the office feeling like she was drowning. She went to the Galactic Council's local representative next. Zixara was a senior member of the council who handled disputes on Nexus Station 7. The meeting went no better. Your child's injuries, while unfortunate, are relatively minor by galactic standards, Zixara said. Many species are far more durable than humans. What you consider a serious injury might be barely noticeable to a Vraxian or a Kryn. You must understand that different species have different tolerances. So because we're more fragile, it's okay to hit us? Yuki asked. I did not say that. I merely point out that Officer Craven may not have realized how vulnerable human juveniles are. This is a cultural misunderstanding more than a criminal matter. My daughter said she was sorry. She tried to apologize. He hit her anyway. Zixara's expression didn't change. The matter has been reviewed and resolved according to proper procedure. I suggest you accept this and move forward. Pursuing this further will only cause more problems for your family. Yuki returned to the hospital feeling helpless and furious. She sat beside Emma's bed, holding her daughter's small hand. Marcus had been released and sat on the other side of the bed. His jaw was clenched so tight Yuki worried he might break his teeth. "They're not going to do anything," Yuki said quietly. "They don't care that she's a child. They don't care that it was an accident. They protect their own and we're just humans." Marcus stared at his daughter's bruised face. "There has to be something we can do. Maybe Earth can help," Yuki said. "Maybe if we contact the Human Defense Coalition or the Diplomatic Corps, they can put pressure on the Council." It was a desperate hope, but it was all they had. Yuki sent a detailed message to Earth. She included medical records, witness statements, security footage, and a formal request for legal assistance through official channels. She also sent a copy to another address her brother had once given her, a special HDC department for emergencies involving human citizens in foreign space. For 2 days, nothing happened. Emma was released from the hospital, but she didn't want to leave the apartment. She was scared of seeing Vraxian officers. She had nightmares every night. On the 3rd day, Yuki received a message on her personal communicator. It was short, from an unknown sender. Confirmed. Package en route. TA 72 hours. Yuki showed Marcus. Neither of them knew what it meant. But for the first time since the incident, Marcus smiled. "Someone's coming," he said. "Who?" "I don't know," he replied. "But whoever they are, they're coming for Emma. They're coming for us." Outside the station, far beyond the range of normal sensors, a small ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel. It was unmarked and unremarkable, matching the profile of 1,000 civilian cargo vessels. Station traffic control gave it a standard approach vector and thought nothing of it. The ship was called the Consequence, and everything was about to change. The Consequence docked at Nexus Station 7 without ceremony. The station's traffic control logged it as a civilian transport requesting standard services. The manifest listed 6 passengers with diplomatic credentials. Docking fees were paid promptly. Everything appeared normal. Administrator Velto was reviewing supply reports when his assistant informed him that representatives from Earth had arrived requesting a meeting. He felt his stomach tighten. He had hoped the Torrance incident would fade away, but Earth was not letting it go so easily. "How many representatives?" Velto asked. 6, Administrator. They have proper diplomatic papers." Velto hesitated. Making Earth's diplomats wait could be an insult, and that might escalate things further. He was learning that humans took insults seriously. "No. Send them in." The door opened and 6 humans entered. Velto had met many humans during his years on the station, but these were different. They moved with purpose and quiet confidence. 5 of them wore simple gray uniforms with no obvious military markings, but Velto's instincts told him they were soldiers. The 6th wore a formal black suit. The woman leading them stepped forward. She was perhaps 40 years old, with short dark hair and alert eyes that seemed to take in every detail of the room at once. She extended her hand in the human greeting gesture. "Administrator Velto, I am Commander Sarah Chun of the Human Defense Coalition. This is Lieutenant James Park, our Judge Advocate General Officer. We're here regarding the assault on Emma Torrance." Velto awkwardly shook her hand, noting her grip was firm but not threatening. "I was not aware Earth was sending military personnel. This is a civilian matter," Velto added. "It became a military matter when station authorities failed to provide justice to a human citizen," Chan said calmly. "May we sit?" They arranged themselves around the conference table. Chun and Park sat directly across from Velto. The other 4 humans positioned themselves near the door and walls. They said nothing, but their presence was unmistakably intimidating. Lieutenant Park opened a data tablet and projected a holographic display. "We have reviewed all available evidence regarding Incident 7, Alpha 392. Security footage shows Emma Torrance, age 8 standard years, accidentally colliding with Officer Craven. She immediately apologized. Officer Craven then struck her with sufficient force to cause significant injuries, including a broken nose, facial contusions, and a concussion. The officer filed a report stating the child damaged his property and required discipline," Velto said weakly. "She's 8 years old," Chun said quietly. She weighs 32 kilograms. She was chasing her pet robot. It was clearly an accident. I understand human concern for juveniles is stronger than in some species. No, Chin interrupted, her voice still calm, but sharper now. This isn't about human feelings. This is about a grown adult in a position of authority striking a child who posed no threat. That is wrong by any reasonable standard. Park continued. We have witness statements from 17 beings who observed the incident. 12 are non-human. All confirm Torrance posed no threat and that the use of force was unprovoked and excessive. Velto shifted in his seat. Officer Craven has diplomatic immunity as a member of the constabulary. The Galactic Council has reviewed the matter and determined it was handled appropriately. Then the Galactic Council made a mistake, Chin said. We are formally requesting that Officer Craven be remanded to human custody to face charges under the Sapient Protection Act. That act has not been ratified, Velto said quickly. Then it should have been, Chin replied. That doesn't change what happened. Emma Torrance is a human citizen. She was assaulted. We are here to ensure justice is done. Velto felt trapped between two bad outcomes. He knew the Vraxians would never surrender one of their own, but refusing Earth outright could escalate into something far worse. I will forward your request to Council Representative Zixara and to Vraxian constabulary leadership. We can find a diplomatic solution. We're not interested in diplomatic solutions that don't include justice, Chun said, standing. The others followed her lead. You have 24 hours to transfer Officer Craven to our custody. And if we refuse? Velto asked before he could stop himself. Chun met his gaze. Then we will pursue other options. We came here hoping to handle this through proper channels. We still do. But make no mistake. One way or another, Officer Craven will answer for what he did. The humans left without another word. Velto sat alone for a long moment, a deep sense of dread settling over him. He immediately called an emergency meeting with Zixara and Constabulary Commander Vethar. They're demanding we hand over Craven, Velto explained. They seem serious. Vethar laughed. Let them demand. This is council space under council law. The human child damaged property. Craven corrected her behavior. The matter is closed. They said they'll pursue other options if we refuse, Velto said. Empty threats, Vethar replied. Humans are emotional. They make noise, but they always back down when faced with real authority. Zixara looked less certain, but said nothing. Velto spent the next hours researching human military history. What he found disturbed him. Humans were classified as Deathworlders, a species shaped by an exceptionally hostile home planet. But it went deeper than that. He read case after case of human military operations launched to recover citizens. They assaulted fortified positions to rescue single hostages. They pursued kidnappers across entire star systems. They went to war over perceived harm to their own. And one pattern repeated without exception. Humans did not tolerate harm to children. He found an early historical case from Earth before faster-than-light travel. Armed forces had stormed a building where children were held hostage. They took casualties rather than wait. All children were saved. The more he read, the more uneasy he became. When he tried to raise his concerns again, Vethar and Zixara dismissed him. You're being paranoid, Vethar said. 6 humans cannot threaten this entire station. We have over 200 security personnel, military-grade weapons, and the backing of the Galactic Council. The humans will complain. We will refuse. And in a few days, they will go home. That evening, Craven gave an interview to the station's news network. The journalist was a Pelthrian who asked careful questions about the incident. The human child ran into me and destroyed expensive equipment, Craven said, sounding annoyed. I administered appropriate discipline. If humans cannot control their offspring properly, they should not bring them into civilized spaces. The child got what she deserved for her carelessness. Some observers say your response was excessive, the journalist noted. Excessive? Craven laughed. I barely touched the creature. If anything, I was too gentle. Humans are emotional primitives. They coddle their young too much. A little discipline would do them all good. These apes need to learn their place in the galaxy. The interview was broadcast across the station. Every human who saw it felt a cold rage building in their chest. Marcus Torrance watched it with Yuki and had to leave the room before he put his fist through the wall. But someone else was watching too. Commander Chen watched the entire interview from her ship. Her expression never changed, but Lieutenant Park noticed her hands gripping the armrests of her chair hard enough to leave marks. "He just made this personal," Park said quietly. "It was always personal," Chen replied. "He hit a child. But now he's bragging about it. Now he's calling us primitives and apes. He thinks there will be no consequences. The 24 hours aren't up yet. They might still hand him over." "They won't," Chen said. "The Vraxian commander thinks we're bluffing. The council thinks they can dismiss us. They're about to learn a very hard lesson." She opened a communication channel. "This is Chun to Orbital Team. Status." A voice responded. "Package deployed and operational. We have control of the systems we need. Awaiting your signal. Stand by." Chun switched channels. "Chun to Task Force Actual. Please report." "This is Actual. 2 destroyers and 4 frigates standing by at designated coordinates. We are ready to move on your order." Chun looked at the countdown timer. 18 hours remained. Park spoke quietly. "If we do this, there will be political consequences. The Council could sanction Earth. They could restrict human trade rights." "Let them try," Chen said. "They'll learn you don't get to hurt our children without consequences. Not in Council space. Not anywhere." In his quarters, Craven felt pleased with himself. His interview had gone well. His fellow Vraxians had sent messages of support. Commander Vethar had personally congratulated him. He had no idea a human stealth satellite was already in orbit. He had no idea 6 warships were silently taking position. He had no idea Commander Chun had already written the operation orders. The deadline approached. Velto sent repeated messages to Chun. Each one received the same reply: "Transfer Officer Craven to human custody. 24 hours. No negotiation." With 1 hour remaining, Velto made one last call to Earth's diplomatic service. "I don't control the military," the ambassador said. "If Commander Chun is there with authorization, she has support from the highest levels. I suggest you comply. We take protection of our children very seriously." The call ended. The deadline passed. For 3 minutes, nothing happened. Velto began to hope. Then every light on the station flickered. A message filled every screen. Commander Chun appeared. "Attention Nexus Station 7. This is Commander Sarah Chun of the Human Defense Coalition. You were given 24 hours to transfer custody of Officer Craven for the assault on Emma Torrance. That deadline has passed. We tried diplomacy. Now we enforce consequences. All non-combatants in Sections 7A through 7D evacuate immediately. You have 5 minutes." The message repeated. Velto stared in horror. What have they done? Across the station, civilians ran for exits. Emergency alarms finally activated. Craven stood in his quarters as the same message replayed. "This is illegal," he shouted. "You cannot do this." His door locked. Controls failed. Communication died. He was trapped. Then the lights went out. Emergency lighting flickered on. Footsteps echoed outside. Shouting. Weapons fire. Silence. His door exploded inward. 3 figures in dark armor entered, moving with controlled precision. Their faces were hidden behind reflective visors. "Officer Craven," one said in perfect Vraxian, "you are under arrest for assault on a minor. You will come with us peacefully, or you will be carried. Choose now." Craven reached for his weapon. He never finished the motion. His wrist was seized and twisted. The weapon was gone instantly. A device pressed to his neck drained his strength in seconds. He collapsed and was caught before hitting the ground. "Subject secured," one of them said. "Extraction proceeding." They carried him through the corridor. Outside, the station looked like a war zone. Vraxian security forces down, systems disabled, controlled chaos everywhere, but no bodies. No unnecessary violence. Just absolute control. The humans had used non-lethal force. More humans in armor moved through the corridor in pairs, operating like ghosts, checking corners, covering each other, communicating with hand signals. Craven had seen many military forces during his career, but he had never seen anything move with such precision. They reached an airlock where a small human shuttle was docked. The airlock should have been locked and monitored, but somehow the humans had taken control of it. They loaded Craven onto the shuttle and secured him in a seat. Within seconds, the shuttle detached and accelerated away from the station. The entire operation had taken 18 minutes. Commander Vethar finally reached his command center to find chaos. Reports were flooding in from sections 7A through 7D. Human forces had breached the station in 3 separate locations. They had used electronic warfare to disable communication and control systems. They had neutralized over 40 Vraxian security officers without killing any of them, and they had taken Craven. How many humans? Vethar demanded. We believe 20 to 30, his second-in-command reported. They used breaching charges and some kind of hacking device. They hit us fast and pulled out before we could respond. Track that shuttle. I want it intercepted. But even as he gave the order, Vethar knew it was too late. The human shuttle was already clear of the station and accelerating toward a ship waiting in high orbit. His sensors were just now identifying it properly. A small vessel, lightly armed. Nothing impressive. Yet it had done what no one thought possible. It had executed a surgical military operation inside a council station and gotten away cleanly. Vethar burst into the command center. What happened? Where is Officer Craven? The humans took him, Vethar said, voice tight with fury. They violated council law, attacked a diplomatic station, and kidnapped a constabulary officer. Or they arrested a criminal being protected by diplomatic immunity. Commander Chen's voice said over the station-wide communication system. Somehow, she had access to their command channels. Officer Craven is in human custody. He will face trial for assault on a minor under human law. Any attempt to interfere will be met with force. You have no authority, Vethar shouted at the screen. This is an act of war. No, Chen replied calmly. This is an arrest. You had the chance to hand him over peacefully. You chose not to. On the tactical display, new contacts appeared. More human ships were entering the system. 2 destroyers. For frigates, they moved into formation around the consequence. You're outnumbered, Vethar said, though his confidence was fading. I can have 3 Vraxian warships there within the hour. Then this will be a very short war, Chen said. But ask yourself, do you really want to start one over an officer who assaulted a child? The channel went silent. Vethar cut the communication. He was furious, humiliated, and beginning to realize he was out of his depth. He immediately contacted Vraxian Military Command. Within minutes, 3 warships changed course toward Nexus Station 7 at maximum speed. Across the station, humans gathered in quarters and common areas, watching the news spread. Some were frightened. Others were quietly relieved. All of them understood something irreversible was happening. Marcus and Yuki sat with Emma between them. When Emma saw Craven being taken away, she tightened her grip on her parents' hands. Are they going to hurt him? She asked softly. Marcus shook his head. No, they're going to make sure he faces justice. Why didn't the station do that? Emma asked. Marcus didn't have an answer. Yuki pulled her closer. Sometimes, she said quietly, the people who are supposed to help us don't, but there are others who will. On the consequence, Craven had been moved to a secure holding cell. A human medic checked him. He was given water, food, and medical assurance. The cell was clean, controlled, and safe. Better treatment than he would have expected from Vraxian custody. Lieutenant Park arrived hours later. Officer Craven, I am Lieutenant James Park, Judge Advocate General for the Human Defense Coalition. You are being charged with assault on a minor, Emma Torrance. You have the right to legal representation. Do you understand these rights? I don't recognize your authority, Craven snapped. I am a Vraxian officer with diplomatic immunity. You have kidnapped me illegally. Your diplomatic immunity applied only while acting in official capacity, Park said evenly. Striking a child is not an official duty. It is assault. This is a mockery of justice. No, Park said, voice hardening. A mockery of justice is an adult striking an 8-year-old child and facing no consequences because of rank. He stepped back. What's happening now is justice. And you should hope you receive a fair trial, because if it were up to the people on this ship, it would be far worse. Within hours, an emergency council session was underway. Dozens of species debated the human response. Some called it aggression. Others called it overdue correction. A Caltherian delegate spoke in support of the humans. We have warned for cycles about abuse of diplomatic immunity. This happened because we allowed it to happen. The Vraxian delegation demanded sanctions. Earth's ambassador responded coldly. He will stand trial. That is not negotiable. At the edge of the system, the standoff escalated. Vraxian warships advanced. Human ships responded. Then more human ships arrived. Then more, until nearly 30 vessels formed a defensive sphere around the consequence. The message was simple. If you want him, come through us. The Vraxian commander stared at his tactical display in disbelief. Where did they all come from? His tactical officer asked. They were positioned in nearby systems, sir, came the reply. They must have been prepositioned before Commander Chun ever arrived at the station. This whole thing was planned. The commander felt his confidence drain away. The humans hadn't acted on impulse. They had prepared for this. They had brought enough force to win or escape if things escalated. He immediately sent a message to Vraxian High Command. Sir, the humans have overwhelming forces in the area. If we engage, we will lose. Requesting orders. The response came after an hour. Do not engage. Return to station. The Council will handle this through diplomatic channels. The Vraxian ships slowly turned away. The humans did not pursue. They simply held position, calm, deliberate, and unmoving. A statement without words. We are not going anywhere. On the consequence, Commander Chun allowed herself a small exhale. Stand down from combat alert. Maintain defensive posture. Prepare for trial proceedings. One of her officers approached. Ma'am, the Council is requesting a meeting. They want to negotiate. Tell them we're happy to talk, Chun said. But make it clear Craven stays in our custody. That is not negotiable. He's going to trial. Lieutenant Park was already building the case. Medical records, security footage, witness testimony, expert analysis, overwhelming evidence. But he understood this was bigger than one assault. This was precedent. A message to the entire system that human children were not expendable. In his cell, Craven finally understood what was happening. This wasn't intimidation. It wasn't negotiation. It was consequence. For the first time since the incident, he felt fear. The trial began exactly 72 hours after his extraction. It was broadcast across the human fleet and, by permission, to Nexus Station 7. Even the Galactic Council observed remotely. The courtroom had been assembled inside a converted cargo bay of the consequence. Military legal judges sat at the front. Craven sat at the defense table with a human attorney assigned to him. Lieutenant Park led the prosecution. Commander Chun presided over jurisdiction. This court is convened under Human Defense Coalition authority, Chun stated. The charge? Assault of a minor, Emma Torrance. The defendant is charged with 1 count of assault causing bodily harm. Judge Martinez turned to Craven. Do you understand the charges? His lawyer leaned in urgently. Craven ignored him. I understand that humans believe they can impose primitive laws on superior species, he said. Silence fell instantly. Judge Martinez's voice turned cold. The defendant will show respect, or he will be held in contempt. Do you understand the charges? Craven hesitated, then nodded. I understand. Plea. Not guilty. The human spawn damaged my property. I administered appropriate discipline. Park stood immediately. Let the record reflect the plea. Then he activated the evidence display. First image, Emma smiling. Second image, Emma in a hospital bed, bruised, swollen, broken. The prosecution will prove beyond any doubt that the defendant assaulted an 8-year-old child who posed no threat. The medical expert testified first. The force required to produce these injuries, the doctor said, is comparable to being struck by a fast-moving vehicle. No ambiguity, no doubt. Then the footage played. Emma chasing her robot, the accidental collision, immediate apology, and Craven striking her. The courtroom didn't move. No one spoke. Park's voice cut through the silence. There is no justification here. There is only violence. Witness after witness confirmed the same sequence. Finally, the defense called Craven. Tell the court your version. He straightened. She collided with me at high speed. She destroyed valuable property. I administered a disciplinary tap. Park immediately objected. Medical evidence confirms this was a full-force strike causing concussion and fracture. Overruled, Judge Martinez said. Continue, but accurately. Reeves tried another angle. In Vraxian culture, is physical correction of juveniles common? Yes, Craven replied. We do not coddle our young like humans. We teach discipline and respect for authority. Park stood again. So you admit it was discipline? It was correction. A pause. Then Park spoke quietly. No, it was assault. And for the first time in the courtroom, the distinction became the only thing that mattered. So from your perspective, you were simply applying your cultural standards to correct a child's misbehavior. Exactly. The humans are simply too soft with their offspring. This is why they remain primitive. Park could see that this line of defense was actually hurting Craven's case rather than helping it. The judges looked increasingly unsympathetic as the Vraxian officer continued to defend his actions and insult humans. When cross-examination began, Park approached slowly. Officer Calvin, you said the collision was at high speed. The victim weighs 32 kilograms. You weigh approximately 90 kilograms. Is that correct? Approximately, yes. So, a child 1/3 your size accidentally bumped into you. Did she injure you in any way? No. But did she threaten you? She destroyed my property by accident. Correct. She immediately apologized. Didn't she? Craven hesitated. She made sounds that might have been an apology. Park played the security footage again, this time with audio. Emma's voice was small and frightened, but clearly audible. I'm so sorry. I didn't see you. I was chasing my robot. That sounds like an apology to me, Park said. She was scared. She was sorry. And she was trying to explain it was an accident. And you hit her anyway. She needed to learn respect. Respect. Park's voice rose slightly. Or fear. Because after you hit her, she was terrified of Vraxian officers. She couldn't leave her apartment for days. She had nightmares. Is that the lesson you wanted to teach an 8-year-old child? Reeves objected, but the damage was done. Craven had essentially admitted that he hit Emma to teach her a lesson, not because he was threatened or defending himself. The defense tried to call character witnesses who testified that Craven was normally a good officer, but it didn't help much. The evidence was too clear. The victim was too sympathetic, and Craven's own testimony had revealed his contempt for humans and his belief that what he did was justified. During closing arguments, Reeves tried his best. Members of the court, my client made a mistake. He reacted poorly to a stressful situation, but he was operating under his own cultural understanding of appropriate discipline. He did not intend to seriously harm the child. This is a case of cultural misunderstanding, not criminal assault. Park stood for his closing statement and looked directly at the judges. Members of the court, this is not a cultural misunderstanding. This is not about different species having different approaches to child rearing. This is about a grown adult in a position of power deliberately striking a small child who posed no threat to him. Emma Torrance is 8 years old. She weighs 32 kilograms. She was chasing her pet robot and having fun the way children do. She accidentally bumped into the defendant and immediately apologized. Park activated the display again, showing Emma's medical photos. The defendant hit her with enough force to break her nose, give her a concussion, and leave her traumatized. He did this not because he was threatened, not because he was defending himself, but because he was angry that his tablet got broken. He valued an object more than a child's well-being. The defendant has shown no remorse. He called Emma Spawn and suggested she deserved what happened. He called humans primitive and said we are too soft with our children. Maybe we are. Maybe we're unusual in the galaxy for how protective we are of our young. But I would rather be called soft than stand by while children are hurt. Park's voice grew harder. This court exists because the Galactic Council failed. They had a chance to provide justice to Emma Torrance. They chose not to. They hid behind diplomatic immunity and told a little girl and her parents that what happened to her didn't matter. That is why we're here. That is why Commander Chun brought a fleet. That is why the Human Defense Coalition will not back down. Because our children matter. Every single one of them matters. And anyone who hurts them will face consequences. I ask this court to find the defendant guilty and to sentence him appropriately, not for revenge, but for justice, and to send a message to the galaxy that human children are protected always. The court recessed to deliberate. Took less than an hour. Judge Martinez read the verdict in a clear, strong voice. On the charge of assault causing bodily harm to a minor, this court finds the defendant, Officer Craven, guilty as charged. Craven stood up, his face showing shock. This is illegal. I am a Vraxian officer. Sit down, Judge Martinez said coldly. You were a Vraxian officer. Now you're a convicted criminal. Sentencing will take place tomorrow. This court is adjourned. The broadcast of the verdict reached Nexus Station 7 within minutes. In their apartment, Marcus and Yuki held Emma as she cried. These were not tears of sadness, but of relief. Someone had finally said that what happened to her was wrong. Someone had finally made it matter. Across the galaxy, the news spread quickly. A human military court had tried and convicted a Vraxian officer for assaulting a child. The Galactic Council went into emergency session again, this time with a very different tone. Administrator Velto sat in his office, reading reports about human history and culture that he wished he had read weeks ago. He was beginning to understand something that most of the galaxy had missed. Humans weren't just dangerous because they came from a death world. They were dangerous because they cared so deeply about protecting each other, especially their young. That made them unpredictable and willing to take risks that other species would never consider. He sent a message to the council. I recommend we accept the verdict and work with Earth to establish new protocols regarding juveniles. Further resistance will only escalate the situation. This time, people listened to him. 6 months had passed since what was now officially called the Torrance Incident in Galactic Council records. The galaxy had changed in small but important ways. Nexus Station 7 still functioned as a diplomatic hub, but the atmosphere was different now. The Vraxian constabulary still provided security, but their officers had undergone extensive retraining. New protocols were in place specifically addressing interactions with juveniles of all species. Every officer now carried a small card listing the physical vulnerabilities of different species young. They were taught to recognize signs of distress in children and to prioritize de-escalation over discipline. Commander Vethar had been quietly reassigned to a desk position on the Vraxian homeworld. His replacement, Commander Teller, was younger and more flexible in his thinking. He had studied human culture and implemented many of the changes personally. Emma Torrance walked through the promenade now without fear. She still chased Zippy through the corridors, and other beings smiled when they saw her playing. When she passed Vraxian officers, they nodded politely and gave her plenty of space. Some even carried small treats safe for human children, offering them as peace offerings. She had recovered physically within a few weeks, but the psychological healing had taken longer. She still had occasional nightmares, but they were becoming less frequent. Her parents had found her a good therapist, and slowly Emma was learning to feel safe again. Marcus had returned to his security consultant work, though he was now treated with a mixture of respect and caution by station authorities. Everyone knew that he was the father who had restrained an officer who hurt his child. Everyone knew that when he had sent that message to Earth, the entire Human Defense Coalition had responded. Yuki had been promoted in her engineering division. Her supervisor, a cautious Pelthrian, had told her that the station's leadership wanted to show that they valued their human residents. Yuki had accepted the promotion but remained cautious about trusting station authorities completely. The family had recently received a package from Commander Chun. Inside were several patches from the Consequence, a handwritten letter thanking them for their courage, and a small medal that Emma kept on her dresser. The letter had ended with a simple sentence: "You're brave, and you're protected always." Emma video called with Commander Chun once a month. The commander had become an unofficial mentor, answering Emma's questions about military service, space travel, and what it meant to stand up for what was right. In their last call, Emma had told Chun that she was thinking about joining the diplomatic corps when she grew up. "That's a good choice," Chun had said, smiling. "We need people who understand both justice and mercy, people who have seen the worst but still believe in the best. I think you'd be excellent at it." Far away, on a human prison station designated Facility 7, Craven was serving his sentence. He had been sentenced to 15 years imprisonment, though he would be eligible for parole after 10 years if he showed genuine rehabilitation. He had also been permanently banned from entering human space and had received an official condemnation that was now part of his permanent record. The prison was not cruel, but it was firm. Craven worked in the facility's maintenance division, learned to follow rules without the privilege of rank, and attended mandatory counseling sessions. His counselor was a patient human woman named Dr. Sarah Kim, who specialized in working with non-human inmates. "Do you understand yet why you're here?" she asked him during one session. "Because I struck a human child," Craven said. He had stopped calling Emma spawn or juvenile after the first month. The other inmates, many of whom had children of their own, had made it very clear that such language would not be tolerated. "Yes, but do you understand why that was wrong?" Craven was silent for a long time. "I have thought about this often. In my culture, physical discipline is normal. But I have learned that Emma Torrance was not my child to discipline. I was not her parent or guardian. I was a stranger who became angry and hit someone much smaller and weaker than myself because I valued an object more than I valued her well-being." It was the first time he had articulated it so clearly. Dr. Kim nodded slowly. "That's progress. Real progress. Tell me, if you could go back to that day, what would you do differently?" "I would not hit her," Craven said immediately. "I would accept her apology. I would help her up if she had fallen. I would treat her with the kindness that children deserve regardless of species." He paused, then added quietly, "I was wrong. I was arrogant and cruel, and a child suffered because of it. I am sorry." Dr. Kim made notes on her tablet. "Have you written to the family?" "Many times. They do not respond, and I understand why. But I continue to write. Even if they never read my letters, I write them. It helps me remember what I did and try to become better." In truth, the Torrance family did receive his letters. Yuki read each one carefully, watching for signs of genuine change. She didn't share them with Emma yet. The girl didn't need to think about Craven anymore. But Yuki kept them in a file, just in case someday Emma wanted to know that the person who hurt her had at least tried to understand his mistakes. The Galactic Council had undergone significant changes after the Torrance incident. The emergency sessions had lasted for weeks, with heated debates about human actions, diplomatic immunity, and the rights of juveniles across all species. The Vraxian delegation had initially demanded severe sanctions against Earth. They wanted trade restrictions, diplomatic penalties, and formal condemnation of the military action on Nexus Station 7. But their position became increasingly untenable as more details of the incident became public. Other species began sharing their own stories of diplomatic immunity being abused. The Calarian representative presented 3 cases where Vraxian officers had used excessive force against Calarian citizens with no consequences. The Evolians shared 2 similar incidents. Even some Vraxian civilians spoke up anonymously, describing a culture within the constabulary that prioritized authority over justice. Faced with growing evidence that the problem was systemic, the Vraxian government quietly began reforms. They issued a public apology to Emma Torrance and her family, though it was carefully worded to avoid admitting full liability. They revised their diplomatic immunity laws to exclude violent crimes against juveniles of any species, and replaced several high-ranking constabulary commanders with officers who had better records of restraint and cultural sensitivity. The most significant change came when the Council passed the Juvenile Protection Mandate. After 4 months of negotiation and compromise, the final version was stronger than anyone had expected. It established clear protections for young members of all species, defined appropriate use of force when dealing with juveniles, and created accountability mechanisms for violations. Ironically, Earth's unilateral action had achieved what years of diplomatic proposals had failed to accomplish. By showing they were willing to enforce their own standards when the Council failed, humans had prompted the Council to adopt similar standards system-wide. Admiral James Briggs of the Human Defense Coalition gave a widely broadcast interview about the incident. "Some people have called our actions extreme," he said. "They say we overreacted. They say we should have accepted the Council's decision and moved on. But here's what they don't understand about humans. We are Deathworlders. We come from a planet that spent millions of years trying to kill us. In that environment, every child was precious. Losing even one could threaten the survival of the group. So we developed deep, powerful instincts to protect them." The interviewer asked, "But Officer Craven wasn't threatening Emma anymore. Why not pursue diplomatic channels?" "Because Emma is 8 years old," Briggs said. "A child was hurt by an adult in authority, and that adult faced no consequences. That tells every human our children aren't safe. That is not acceptable." "So you're saying humans will always respond with military force?" "I'm saying we will always respond. We prefer diplomacy. We tried it. But when diplomacy fails and children remain unprotected, we will use whatever means are necessary." The interview was watched by billions. It made some species nervous, but it also made many parents across many worlds feel safer. If the humans were willing to go to such lengths for their own children, perhaps they would help protect everyone's children. Administrator Velto had published an academic paper called The Deathworlder Paradox: Why Humans Are Simultaneously Peaceful and Terrifying. It had become required reading in diplomatic training programs across the Council. The paper's key insight was that human protective instincts were both their greatest strength and what made them so dangerous to provoke. Humans could be friendly, cooperative, and patient in normal circumstances. But when they perceived a threat to their young or to those they considered under their protection, they transformed into something entirely different. Other species make cost-benefit calculations when deciding to use force, he wrote. Humans do this too most of the time, but when children are involved, the calculation changes. The cost of action becomes almost irrelevant compared to the cost of inaction. This makes them unpredictable and extremely dangerous in specific circumstances. The wise diplomat learns to recognize these circumstances and avoid them entirely. The paper had been controversial, but it had also been correct. Other species began adjusting their behavior accordingly. 3 months after the verdict, another incident occurred on a distant trading station called Haven Point. A Kethran merchant had struck a 14-year-old human boy who had been caught shoplifting from his store. The boy had been trying to steal food because his parents were between jobs and struggling financially. The merchant had only hit the boy once, leaving a bruise on his arm. It was far less severe than what happened to Emma. But the local human community responded immediately. Within hours, a peaceful protest had gathered outside the merchant's store. Human residents demanded he be arrested and charged. The station security force, remembering what happened on Nexus Station 7, acted quickly. They arrested the merchant, contacted the boy's family, and initiated formal charges. The merchant was tried under the new juvenile protection mandate. He was found guilty and given a fine and community service sentence. More importantly, he was required to attend classes on interspecies cultural awareness and appropriate responses to juvenile misbehavior. The human community accepted this outcome. There was no call for military intervention. No fleet arrived to enforce justice. The system had worked as it should. This incident and several others like it showed that the precedent had been set. Station authorities across the galaxy now understood that juveniles, especially human juveniles, were to be treated with care and restraint. The threat of human military intervention was rarely needed anymore because local systems were working. Commander Chun, still active in the Human Defense Coalition, received regular reports about these incidents. She kept a file of every case where the new protocols were followed successfully. She also kept a separate file of cases where they were not, ready to respond if necessary. "We don't want to be the galaxy's police force," she told her officers during a briefing. "That's not our job. But we will be the galaxy's reminder that children are precious and that hurting them has consequences. If we have to step in once a year or once every 5 years, we will. But I hope we won't have to. I hope the galaxy is learning." So far, the galaxy seemed to be learning. The number of incidents involving human juveniles had dropped dramatically. Part of that was better protocols and training. Part of it was fear of human response. But an unexpected part was that other species had started advocating for similar protections for their own young. The Evolian government passed laws mirroring the juvenile protection mandate. The Pelthrians created specialized training for anyone working with multi-species youth populations. Even the Vraxians, proud and slow to change, implemented reforms. Emma's 8th birthday had been quiet, celebrated only with family and a few close friends. But her 9th birthday was different. The human community on Nexus Station 7 threw her a party in the main promenade. Hundreds of beings attended, bringing gifts and well wishes. Station Administrator Velto came personally to present Emma with a scholarship fund for her future education. "On behalf of Nexus Station 7 and the Galactic Council, I want to apologize for what happened to you," he said formally. "We failed you. We failed your family. We failed to provide the justice you deserved. The changes we've made since then are because of you. You helped make the galaxy safer for all children. Thank you." Emma, now 9 years old and more confident than she had been a year ago, smiled up at him. "Thank you for saying sorry, and thank you for changing things. I don't want what happened to me to happen to anyone else." Yuki wiped tears from her eyes as she watched her daughter accept the apology with grace and maturity. Marcus stood beside her, his arm around her shoulders, proud of the strong person Emma was becoming. Commander Chun had sent a video message that was played at the party. "Happy birthday, Emma. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person, but I'm thinking of you. You showed courage when courage was needed. You helped change the galaxy just by being brave and refusing to accept injustice. That's what real strength looks like. I hope you have an amazing birthday, and I hope you know that you're protected always." That night, after the party ended and Emma was asleep, Marcus and Yuki sat together looking out at the stars. "Do you think it's really over?" Yuki asked quietly. "For Emma? Yes, I think so. She's healing. She's happy again. The nightmares are rare now. I mean more broadly. Do you think the galaxy has really learned the lesson?" Marcus considered this. Some have learned, some are still learning, and some will never truly understand. But if something like this happens again, there will be a response. Maybe not fleets or wars. Maybe just pressure, justice systems, consequences. But there will be a response. "Because we're Deathworlders?" Yuki asked. "Because we're parents," Marcus corrected. "Because we're human. Because we protect our own. Not because we're scary. Because we love them." Yuki leaned against him, watching the ships move through the darkness. "I'm glad we stayed. I thought about leaving after it happened. But staying here, seeing the changes, knowing Emma's suffering led to something better. I'm glad we stayed." "Me too," Marcus said. "And you know what? Emma told me yesterday that when she grows up, she wants to work to help different species understand each other better. She wants to prevent things like what happened to her from happening to other kids. She wants to build bridges." "Of course she does," Yuki said, smiling through tears. "That's exactly who she is." Far away on Earth, in the headquarters of the Human Defense Coalition, a new protocol had been added to the operational guidelines. It was called the Torrance Protocol, and it outlined the steps to be taken when a human juvenile was harmed in foreign space and local authorities failed to respond appropriately. The protocol emphasized diplomatic solutions first, but it also authorized military intervention if necessary. It had been approved at the highest levels of the human government. The message was clear and permanent. Human children were sacrosanct. Anyone who forgot that would face consequences. A young officer reading the protocol for the first time asked her supervisor, "Has this protocol been used since the original incident?" "No," the supervisor said. "It's been 6 months, and we haven't needed it. You know why? Because the galaxy learned. One incident, one trial, one clear demonstration that we meant what we said, and behavior changed across thousands of systems. That's not just military power. That's the power of setting a precedent. But we'd use it again if we had to, right? In a heartbeat," the supervisor said. "And every species out there knows it. That's what keeps it from being necessary. That's what protects every human child living in foreign space. The certain knowledge that if someone hurts them, there will be consequences." Emma Torrance was now applying to the Youth Diplomatic Program, a prestigious school that trained young people interested in interspecies relations. Her application essay was simple and powerful. "A year ago, something bad happened to me. A person in authority hurt me, and the systems that were supposed to protect me failed. But then other people stepped in. They came from far away to make sure I was safe and justice was done. They taught me that when systems fail, people who care can make a difference. When I grow up, I want to be one of those people. I want to help build systems that don't fail in the first place. I want to help different species understand each other so that accidents don't become incidents, and incidents don't become conflicts. I want to build bridges, not walls. And I want every child in the galaxy to know they're protected and valued, no matter where they come from." The admissions committee approved her application unanimously. One reviewer wrote a note in her file. "This young woman has already changed the galaxy once. I believe she'll do it again." In the end, the Torrance incident became a turning point. It was studied in diplomatic schools, referenced in council debates, and remembered as the day the galaxy learned an important lesson about humanity. Not that humans were violent or aggressive, but that they were protective. Fiercely, unconditionally, irrationally protective of their young. And in a dangerous galaxy where threats could come from anywhere, where accidents could have terrible consequences, and where the strong often preyed on the weak, having someone willing to enforce protection wasn't such a bad thing. The Deathworlders from Earth had reminded the galaxy of an old truth that many had forgotten. Children were precious. All children of all species. They were the future, the innocent, the vulnerable. And they deserved to be protected by laws, systems, and justice that refused to fail them.